Good day, Mathalinos, and welcome to our next journey in learning statistics and probability. This is Hazel Joyce D. Ramos, your mathematics teacher. Have you ever been conducting a survey, or have you experienced being interviewed by a researcher? Well, in this lesson, you will understand the importance of having a random sampling in research. I assure that this topic is very helpful to you as a students who are currently taking Practical Research 1. Now, let's find out how does this topic is useful. If a researcher wants to observe, examine or test a theory or hypothesis, he will consider the problem by selecting a section of the population of study using a method called random sampling. Now, let's recall the difference between population and sample.
The population refers to the whole group under the study or investigation. In research, the population does not always refer to people. It may mean a group containing elements of anything you want to study, such as objects, events, organizations, countries, species, organisms, etc. A sample is a subset taken from a population, either by a random sampling or by non-random sampling. A sample is a representation of the population where it is hoped that valid conclusion will be drawn from the population. In this illustration alone, it will help you understand the difference between population and sample. A population is the entire group that you want to draw conclusions about. A sample is the specific group that you will collect data from. The size of the sample is always less than the total size of the population. Again, sample is from the target population. What process do we need to take so that our sampling process will give equal chance for every individual in the population to be included? Yes, it is random sampling. Now, what is random sampling? Random sampling is a selection of n elements derived from the n population, which is the subject of an investigation or experiment where each point of the sample has an equal chance of being selected using the appropriate sampling technique. Random sampling is one of the simplest forms of collecting data from the total population. Under random sampling, each member of the subset carries an equal opportunity of being chosen as one of the sampling process.
Let's consider these situations. There are 980 students enrolled in Bitin Integrated National High School. The teacher randomly selects 100 students for a survey concerning their opinions in the new normal distance learning.
What is the population in the given situation and how many samples are there in the population? Now we are going to identify the population and sample. As we define population, it refers to the whole group under the study or investigation. In the given situation, the respondents are the students who enrolled in Bitin Integrated National High School, and there are 980 students. But the teacher wants to get only students, so he chooses these students randomly. Therefore, the population is 980 students enrolled in Bitin Integrated National High School, and the identified samples are the 100 selected students. So, did the situation illustrates random sampling? Why or why not? Yes, it illustrates random sampling because there is a randomization wherein every student have an equal chance of being selected.
Now let's proceed to another situation. A group of researchers of Miss Divine's class in Practical Research tested to see if the mean annual salary of family in Barangay Bitin Bay, Laguna is more than 100,000 pesos. A survey of 100 randomly chosen family in the said barangay found that their mean salary was 150,000 pesos.
What is the population in the given situation and how many samples are there in the population? The researchers choose the family of Barangay Bitin as their respondents, but they want to get the samples only, where they select 100 family randomly. Therefore, the population is the residents' family in Barangay Bitin Bay, Laguna, while the identified samples are the 100 family randomly selected. Did the situation illustrates random sampling? Why or why not? Yes, it illustrates random sampling because there is a randomization wherein every family have an equal chance of being selected.
This time, let's look at the different ways to randomly select our sample. There are 5 types of random sampling techniques. Number 1, lottery sampling. 2, systematic sampling. 3, stratified random sampling. 4, cluster sampling. And 5, multi-stage sampling.
Number 1. Lottery sampling. Lottery sampling is a sampling technique in which each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. An instance of this is when members of the population have their names represented by small pieces of paper that are then randomly mixed together and picked out. In the sample, the member selected will be included. Number 2. Systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is a sampling technique in which members of the population are listed and samples are selected at interval called sample interval. In this technique, every nth item in the list will be selected from a randomly selected starting point. For example, if we want to draw a 200 sample from a population of 6,000, we can select every third person in the list. In practice, the number between 1 and 30 will be chosen randomly to act as the starting point. Number 3. Stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling is a sampling procedure in which members of the population are grouped on the basis of their homogeneity. This technique is used when there are a number of distinct subgroups in the population within which full representation is required. The sample is constructed by classifying the population into subpopulations or strata on the basis of certain characteristics of the population, such as age, gender, or socioeconomic status. The selection of elements is then done separately from within each stratum, usually by random sampling or systematic sampling methods. For example, using stratified random sampling, select a sample of 400 students from the population which are grouped according to the municipalities they come from. The table shows the number of students per municipality. So there are 12,000 students in the municipality of Los Baños. So we assume that there are 12,000 students. And in the municipality of Bay has 10,000. San Pablo has 4,000 and the municipality of Alaminos has 2,000. To determine the number of students to be taken as sample from each municipality, we divide the number of students per municipality by total population, which is 28,000. Multiply the result by the total sample size, 400. So like for example, in the city of Los Baños has 12,000 students. So we divide the number of students, which is 12,000, by the total population, 28,000, times 400. So there are 171 students to be taken as sample from Los Baños. So same as the other municipalities. Number 4. Cluster sampling. Cluster sampling is sometimes referred to as area sampling and applied on a geographical basis. Generally, first sampling is performed at higher levels before going down to lower levels. For example, samples are taken randomly from the provinces first, followed by cities, municipalities, or barangays, and then from households. The number 5 type of random sampling technique is multi-stage sampling technique. It uses a combination of different sampling techniques. For example, when selecting respondents for a national election survey, we can use the lottery method first for regions and cities. We can then use stratified sampling to determine the number of respondents from selected areas and clusters.
Today had been a great learning experience. So see you next time on another Statistics and Probability.